and happy holidays, and welcome to Debating Metal. I'm your host, Kenneth Dean, the Dean of Metal, and my co-host is Chris K. Today, we're doing things a little different. We don't have a head-to-head, a greatest hits, or even a big four for that matter. No, today we're celebrating the holiday season by bringing you our top 10 favorite metal Christmas songs.
It's a common misconception that metal bands are evil or satanic, but in fact, as we all know, there are bands from all over the world that celebrate the Christmas holiday. Even some pagan bands, as we'll discuss later. As new Christmas songs and remakes of old ones are released every year, some of our favorite metal bands and musicians have joined in on the fun and recorded their own face-melting versions.
So today, Chris and I have chosen our 10 favorite metal Christmas songs, and we're going to read them off to you and let you know why they're our favorite holiday tunes. All right, Chris, so this is a little different today, and we're just going to have some fun with this. We're not going to be too serious about anything. Not that
I'm very serious. I fully analyzed every song, every note.
Probably. That's just the way you are. I like that about you.
It's
But
true.
we're gonna just have some fun with this today. All right, so the way it's going to work for you faithful listeners out there, we are going to go from 10 through 1. We're each going to give our 10th, and then we're going to give our 9th and talk about it, and then give our 8th and talk about it. So until we get to number 1. If there's any duplications, we'll just kind of reference it and move on. Oh yeah, we had that at number 7. Okay, good. Let's go. All right. So, anyway, you want to go first?
All right. Yeah, I can do that. So my first one is going to be the Stalking Song by Steel Panther.
I didn't even look them up.
So, any Christmas song that features kazoos is great. Beautiful lyrics about a guy stuffing his girlfriend's stocking, and then being very thorough by, taking it out, putting it back in, taking the, etc. Really just being thorough about those Christmas presents and, what's going into her stocking. So, just a beautiful song, just brings around the holiday cheer. Definitely recommend it.
The holiday cheer. Oh, someone took this a lot less seriously than I did. Oh, man. Oh, this is going to be fun tonight. All right. Well, my number 10 song, and this is not getting any better, is Korn with Jingle Balls. And this is basically Korn pretending to be Cannibal Corpse, because the vocals are just completely guttural, and
it's Cannibal Corpse,
right? And it is quite the song. I mean, you can tell that they're just messing around, but it's funny because they do the whole song of Jingle Bells in this kind of very slow, methodical, deathy kind of way. So that's my number 10.
All right. So I mentioned at the top of the show, I said some pagan bands. So my next one is Viking Christmas by Amon Amarth.
Wait a second. So you're saying that Steel Panther is a Christian band?
They are strictly a Christian band. Basically like Stryper.
Woo!
If you're a fan of Stryper,
You're a fan of
definitely
Steel Panther.
definitely pick up Steel Panther. Yeah, it's basically the same thing.
All right.
I think what's his name? Michael. What's the singer's name?
Michael Sweet. He just rolled over in his bed.
Yeah. Michael Sweet. Yeah, he would definitely say he's basically just the same guy as Michael Starr. So,
right. Okay.
So back to Viking Christmas. So it was a single, and I would say all the best Christmas songs start out with a sword being drawn and a prayer to Odin. But this, although Amon Amarth loves Odin, they also love presents and gingerbread cookies, which they express throughout the song. So I think we can actually take a lesson from that on a serious note, that even if it's not your specific thing, like, we can all appreciate each other's holidays and enjoy them. So I have friends that, I'm not a particularly religious person myself, but I have friends that come from all over the world, and it's kind of cool that we can all appreciate each other's, cultures.
Are you saying you're pagan?
I might.
Okay. I you know what? It's funny because I've heard that Amon Amarth song, and no, I completely forgot about it on this list of mine here. So anyway, I'm telling you, man, I took this way more seriously than you did. Anyway.
That's rare.
It is rare. Very rare. Number 9 for me is Bad Wolves and Carol of the Bells. I really, really dig this version. Now, so, a little bit of background on me as far as Christmas songs are concerned. I'm a big Christmas song guy. I'm a metalhead, but at the same time, I really, really do appreciate a lot of these Christmas songs, and some of them the most traditional, with, what's his face? What's his face?
Luther Vandross.
No, more older than that. Nat King Cole. I have his traditional Christmas album, the one that was very famous. I think it's kind of like an off reddish, almost orange color on the cover. I have the CD for that. My favorite all-time Christmas song, and this is not metal, is Wayne Newton doing Little Drummer Boy, and it has a lot to do with me and my grandmother. She kind of turned me on to that song when I was a kid, and he sounds like a girl, he sounds like a 8-year-old boy / girl singing this song, but he was, I think, 19 or 20 at the time when he did the song. So his voice,
for the longest time, I thought it was a girl. I legitimately did. Hearing it on the radio, my mom, loved Christmas music. For the longest time, I thought that was a girl.
Yes, and it's Wayne Newton. So anyhow, that's my favorite Christmas song. I love, like, when the very special Christmas CDs or albums came out in the 80s, 90s, or whenever it was that they got released. I was totally into those because it was rappers with pop musicians and a little bit on the hard rock side with some, and I don't want to call Bruce Springsteen hard rock, but the version that they did was harder than normal. But there was Tom Petty in there was Bob Seger in there, Sting, Bon Jovi was actually included in the first one, the band, and then John Bon Jovi did another one. I mean, so there was super cool stuff. The Pretenders, it was quote unquote rock bands, rock artists, pop artists. Madonna was in there, but I really, really appreciated that stuff because it was very hard to find in the 80s and early 90s rock metal artists doing Christmas songs.
Yeah.
And so as it became more prevalent, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is cool. And, I began to build up my collection, even though a couple of artists that we're going to talk about today actually had songs in the 80s. But they were kind of like an outlier more than the norm, which is now the norm kind of. So anyhow, yeah. So Carol of the Bells by Bad Wolves is a really, really cool version of that song. I really like the production on this version of the song. I mean, it is crystal clear. The guitar sounds great. The mix is virtually perfect. I don't know what else to say. The guy's voice is incredible. It's a shame that, politics got involved with the band, and I believe they literally just fired the guy for voicing some opinions of his that were kind of extreme, and I'm not going to go right or left or whatever it was. It's just the band and him parted ways over politics. So, but anyhow,
it's too bad.
Yeah, it is too bad because I love his voice. The dude's voice was great, or is great. He's just no longer with the band. So anyway, that's my number 9. What do you got for number 8?
For number 8, I've got Jingle Bells by Austrian Death Machine. And I gotta say, when I think of Christmas, I definitely think of Tim Lambesis. It's not true at all. So it was on a single called "Very Brutal Christmas." Um, what I really do think though is Arnold Schwarzenegger, because Jingle All the Way is one of my favorite Christmas movies, and this isn't really a Jingle All the Way song. They have another one that is kind of more about that. It's Turbo Time, but I like this one better. And it's very thrashy death metal song, a lot of fun, but it's just a thrashy death metal version of Jingle Bells, and of course Arnold chimes in here and there, which is great.
Is it really Arnold, or is it an imposter?
No, Tim Lambesis actually does a decent impression, like caricature version of Arnold. So it's really fun.
No, I actually heard the song the other day, and I thought it was pretty cool. So it's definitely one of those songs that I thought about putting on the list, but I didn't.
Yeah, so far we got nothing in the same.
Nothing the same. I think we're going to touch upon a couple, but...
yeah, probably towards the end.
Towards the end. Anyway, number 8 for me is Helix, Rocking Around the Christmas Tree. Now, what's cool about this song is that it is basically... You're listening to an 80s metal band doing an 80s metal song, but they just, it's just a Christmas song. I mean, it's done, it's, typical rock and roll style blues. It's recorded, it's just a metal, like I said, an 80s metal band doing an 80s metal tune that just happens to be Christmas themed. So it's really cool. Actually, the whole album is really cool. So Helix, it's called The Heavy Mental Christmas. That album is really, really cool. It came out, I believe, like 11 years ago, or something like that, maybe even longer. I know. I saw the copyright thing today on Spotify, but Spotify is so screwed up with their year, the release dates and shit like that. But it said 2011, so I'm assuming that's when it came out. Very good. I like it. The whole album is pretty cool. They've got a couple of originals on there that, it's a stretch when you're trying to make an original that sounds like a metal song, but there's not a lot of Christmassy parts to it. So, but this song's pretty cool. They did, like I said, some original songs, some traditional songs. The traditional songs all sound pretty normal, just metalized.
Very cool.
All right. What do you got for number 7?
So my number 7 is Run, Rudolph, Run by Lemmy, Billy Gibbons, and Dave Grohl. If you think of 3 guys that define cool, I would say those are them. So this is off a compilation called We Wish You a Metal Xmas and a Headbanging New Year. It's a kind of a lame name, but it actually has some really good stuff on it. I really like it. I mean, it's about what you'd expect from Billy Gibbons, a very ZZ Top-ish version, and having Lemmy on bass and Dave Grohl on drums. I mean, Dave's drums always sound amazing. Really fun version of the song.
For me personally, I like a lot of those albums, but for the purposes of our recording tonight, I stayed away from those compilations where there's like 10,000 people passing tapes along to each other. Here, do your vocals on this song, do your vocals on that song, do your bass tracks on here, here's your drum parts, and then they put together an album worth of shit. All of those up until recently were produced by Bob Kulick until he passed away. And Bruce, of course, played on a lot of those.
Yeah,
all those albums are really cool, and I love. That was part of that whole tribute album period where like left and right tribute albums were coming out by every artist under the sun. And I guess that was the way that's kind of how a lot of these bands reunited and started playing again, because like, oh, I could sing a song here, and oh, you know what, let's get the original band back together, and it was like one thing led to another kind of thing. So anyway, so I stayed away from that, and I kind of had just single artists for my list, but that's not taking away anything from your list. I actually like this version of the song. I've heard it before, and I think it's pretty cool. So
yeah, I mean, the production's really good on this particular album, and the group of people I thought was really cool. So yeah. We'll talk more about that.
Yeah, in the 90s, when all these things started, a lot of these, compilations with all these different tributes and stuff like that, it was so It was so simple. It was just as well. Let me step back a second. It wasn't as easy as it is now, where you just send a file over the internet, but you could send an ADAT tape in the mail, and I say ADAT because that's what it was. You sent an ADAT tape, which was digital, in the mail, and although it was tape, so it was kind of like a what is that? Those Sony video cams that were kind of digital, but it was still tape. So
gotcha, like a DV tape.
Yeah, so you sent the ADAT in the mail to someone who had an ADAT machine or a studio, and they would just then sync their stuff up and move along and go on to the next thing. So it was before Pro Tools, but it was obviously after, you know, the technology started to be digital, where they could send those things back and forth. But yeah, but they always sounded great. Like the bass and the drums always sounded awesome on those tapes. It was just so cool. All right, so for me, number 7. Speaking of things that sound cool, August Burns Red with their version of Frosty the Snowman. Now, I know you're not a big metalcore guy, but this song. So it was funny. I started thinking about it. I said, there's a metalcore band doing a Christmas song. So they speed it up, right? So do they speed it up to the point where you really can't follow along lyrically, where you just start singing and it turns into gibberish and stuff like that? No, it's at a pace that I think is just fast enough for people to still be able to sing along, you know, or hum along in their head, but you know that you're going faster than normal. I think that works out really well, and that's why I kind of like this song better than other songs on this album. So now, the one thing that I laughed at when I was listening to this was it's a metalcore band. So, of course, a metalcore band, in order to be metalcore, you have to have a breakdown at some point in the middle of the song. Right?
Of course.
So I'm listening to this, right? And I'm like, so where's the breakdown? And they get to a part where it's like the end of the chorus, you know, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Frosty the Snowman. And so it's like, it would be right where, you know, the thumpity thump thump part would start. They kind of stop there and they go into this breakdown. It's like, you know, it's just, it fits. It's funny. Because I'm thinking of you when I'm listening to this, and I'm like, he's gonna hate this part. But it's not like your typical, you know, it's not like total start stop. But there's enough in there to say, yeah, that's the breakdown, you know. But it's still, to me, it was pretty cool. I thought it was fun. So that's my number 7.
Nice. Yeah, no, I'm always gonna love those breakdowns. All right, so my number 6 is off the same album I just talked about, that We Wish You a Metal Xmas. It is God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen, by Ronnie James Dio, Tony Iommi, Rudy Sarzo, and Simon Wright. So I would call this like a very Dehumanizer Christmas. If you've heard Dehumanizer album, that was a reunion album, I want to say 1992 with Black Sabbath. It sounds more like the Wayne's World version of Time Machine, so it doesn't have that same production value that was on the album, but it has that doomy feel. And there's just this cool juxtaposition of saying like we God rest ye merry gentlemen, and they're saying tidings and comfort and joy, and it's all doom sounding like you're going on a journey to hell. Like, it's so funny.
Yeah, well, that's Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah.
It's funny because none of those guys really they don't play that kind of doomy, deathy music.
Not really, but that Dehumanizer album sounded very much like that, and it's just a funny version of this song to me.
That's cool. I like that song, God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. I always say very gentlemen. What's so very about them? They're extra.
They're varied gentlemen. They're a assortment of gentlemen.
All right. Number 6 for me is Twisted Sister and their heavy metal Christmas version of, and that's what it's called, and that's basically their version of the 12 Days of Christmas. to me, this is super cool because it's twisted kind of their way of incorporating metal stereotypes, spandex and skull rings and earrings and denim jackets and leather and all that stuff into the lexicon of Christmas music. And I think it's pretty cool. They really have fun with it. You can tell they're just having fun. There's a funny part though, that the part where in the song where everyone sits there and says 5 golden rings. Well, in their version, they're supposed to be saying 5 skull earrings. When I'm listening to this, it sounds like they're saying 5 stolen rings. And I'm like, what the hell? Why are they getting stolen property? And then I looked up the lyrics and it's skull earrings.
I didn't catch that. I did listen to it, but I didn't catch that. That's funny.
I was dying when I was like, I read the lyrics and I'm like, oh shit, it's freaking skull earrings. It's not stolen rings.
So you thought it was stolen rings all this time?
That would be just so, stereotypical of what people think metalheads are, like criminals and shit. But I wouldn't think Twisted Sister would write that, but it sounds that way.
That's funny.
All right. Number 5.
All right, so my number 5 is my last entry off that same album I just talked about. So it's Silent Night by Chuck Billy, Scott Ian, John Denai, Chris Wise, and John Tempesta. So it's a meeting of Testament and Anthrax. It's just such a badass version of Silent Night. Like, it just starts with death metal vocals. I mean, Silent Night. and then it's just got this badass guitar solo, like right off the bat, and it lasts for like a minute, and it's just ripping your face off. And it's so much the opposite of a Silent Night. It's just awesome.
Well, who was playing guitar again?
John Denai.
Okay.
Yeah, Denai's doing the solo, but Scott Ian's harmonizing with him throughout it, so it's pretty awesome.
That's funny. And who's on bass?
That would be Chris Wise.
Okay. Oh man, that's funny. I remember listening to that album. It's been a few years since I've listened to it on a regular, but I remember that version of the song, and I'm like, really? This isn't fucking Silent Night whatsoever.
Not at all.
But I can just, I can. That's just so appropriate to sit there and go Silent Night, that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Like I could imagine Typo Negative, just because Peter Steele's voice was that way, doing a version of Silent Night that would just be so appropriate for him.
Yeah.
But like he did, like Typo Negative doing a cover of Black Sabbath was so perfect. It was, to me, is actually more evil sounding and more evil in general than Black Sabbath's version ever could be. It's like perfect. But anyway, we move on. I am at my number 5. And my number 5 is, now this is where it starts stretching into, is it really metal? But at the time it was done, he was still classified as like pop metal. John Bon Jovi, in his version of Please Come Home for Christmas, which was on the very special Christmas 2 album. I love this version. So this goes along with everything that I said earlier about how I am and how I grew up on traditional Christmas music. This version is so cool, but there is a little bit of the hard rock kind of metal thing. There's a guitar solo in it, and it's not Richie Sambora. I didn't check who the players were on this particular one, but it's a John Bon Jovi solo song. So I just love it. His voice is great on it. The recording is good. So I really, really enjoy this version of that song. This version, along with Aaron Neville's version from his Soulful Christmas album, are the two versions I like the most of this song.
I'm familiar with this one. I remember hearing it a lot on the radio. It was pretty cool.
Yep.
So my number 4 is going to be Christmas with the Devil by Spinal Tap off of their Break Like the Wind album.
Break Like the Wind.
So what I love about Spinal Tap is they're legitimately good. They are not. It's not just a movie where they acted like they were playing the what the hell are things instruments. Wow, they just acted like they were playing the instruments. Like they actually learned to play, and I mean they had talent before that, but you have Michael McKean with awesome vocals and Nigel Tufnell's name is Christopher Guest. Christopher Guest actually has a really kick-ass solo on this, and I looked it up. They had some guest, no pun intended, and no pun intended. They had some guest musicians on the album, but on most of the songs he played the solos, which is pretty awesome. So, like, they did their album that was the music from the movie, and then 6 years later they released this, which I thought was still a really good album. And I just really enjoy Spinal Tap, whether it's the movie or the music or whatever. It's just such a fun band, and kind of like Steel Panther, they legitimately are awesome. So, yeah, definitely check that one out.
Yeah, I thought I had that album, Break Like the Wind, but I don't know. I know I don't have the soundtrack, but I thought I had Break Like the Wind, 'cause I remember when it came out.
Yeah.
I have to look it up. I'm staring at my CDs, but I can't read shit because all the writing is so small. But okay, so the difference between Spinal Tap and Steel Panther. Steel Panther is actually real musicians. That's their job, their day job.
Yes.
As opposed to three actors that are actually their side gig is a fake band, which is that's just funny in itself.
But think about it; those three guys have done more than just metal too. They did another movie where they played folk music and they played the instruments too. Like,
no, I know they play their instruments. It's just so funny because they're three actors who learn how to play music.
Comedians first, actors second, and then musicians third, which is hilarious that they still have really good chops.
All right, so my number 4 is Trans-Siberian Orchestra with Christmas Eve, Sarajevo 1224. So I've loved this track for several years now. Typically on Christmas Eve or a couple days before Christmas Eve, my family and I used to go to Woodlands Church here in Houston, in the Woodlands, Texas, and they always put on a fantastic Christmas show. Now, I haven't gone for several years. It's just been one of those things where the timing has not been optimal for us to go between picking up people for the holidays and all sorts of different things. But when we did, there was one year that they played this song at the church, and it was really, really cool. They even had this version has a cello in it. I don't think they had any violinists, but they did play other songs from TSO, and they had this metal violin player come in who could shred like Mark Wood, the violinist. Shred like they were Yngwie Malmsteen on violin. That's how cool it was. This version, of course, is the original Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Off the first, so is it Christmas Eve and Other Stories, I think is the name of the album. Excellent version. It's a medley of God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen and Carol of the Bells. Although they call it in the, I want to say, is it Russian or Croatian? It was made in that area of the world, the original, and they have a specific name for the song, but in English, it is the Carol of the Bells. So the song itself was inspired by a story that Paul O'Neill had heard. And the story behind it, about a guy who had left Sarajevo, came back, it was war-torn, and he was so heartbroken that he would go into the middle. He was heartbroken because his country was at war, not with another country, but with its own people, and the country itself was just in shambles because of its own people. a civil war. And so he would go to the center of town, sit on a pile of rubble and play his cello. The actual story is not really like that. Paul O'Neill's version of the story has a white-haired man, someone in his elderly age. It was not the case. The original story was based on a guy who was about 36 years old, but he did have some accompanist from a string quartet that were older, so that's how the story probably got mixed in with some older people. It's a really, really cool story. And just that whole thing behind it is what makes this song even more magical, just to know that kind of information. So that's pretty cool. I like this song a lot. Very heavy at times, very passive at other times. So it's really, really nice dynamics on this song.
I really like Trans-Siberian Orchestra. My mom was actually a huge fan of them. And I think she went to see them before. Which I think is really cool. I've never actually gotten the chance to see them live, but
every year I try to get tickets. Like the last couple of years, like I missed getting tickets. This year I knew they were coming out. I was ready for it, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not spending $500 on 4 tickets. I'm just not."
Yeah,
because if I'm going to go to something like that, I'm going to bring my girls because it's Christmas, and I don't want to sit in the upper deck. I'm sorry. For those who sit in the upper deck, more power to you. I'm not. It's just like when I go here to the Woodlands, Cynthia Woods Mitchell Pavilion. Okay. It is an amphitheater. I refuse to sit in the grass. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do it. So, you can go see the show for $10. I could give a fuck, okay? Because I am not sitting in the grass. I am not going to leave myself open to getting poured on. I'm not going to rent one of these little freaking flat chairs that they let you rent. No, not happening. I am getting a seat under the cover. It sounds better. It has a big ass fan that blows air around. It's still hot, but no, I'm not sitting in the grass. I'm sorry. I just won't do it. If I would have sat in the grass in San Antonio when I went to see Ozfest in 2007 in Selma, I would have been, well, first of all, I would have had to have carried my wife out because she would have been dead from all the fucking roaches and crickets that were all over the place. But then I would have been skeeved out too, so I probably wouldn't have ended up seeing the whole show. But that's when we got out of there were so many crickets and so many roaches all over the place that crept out at night. It was freaky. So I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing the grass. No, never.
I've done it once. It was at BuzzFest many, many years ago.
I mean, you can call me, you can say whatever you want about me, but I'm sorry. I'm just, I'm foo-foo that way. I'm not fucking doing the damn grass.
All right, Mr. Prissy, my number 3.
That's just like my dog. Who, when I forget to cut the grass in the backyard, my dog fucking on it. She pisses on the concrete. Because she doesn't.
Now I'm picturing you not wanting to step out on the grass like a dog. Hovering your foot over the grass.
I have a female dog. She will not squat in the grass because the grass tickles her twat. So she doesn't go fucking pee. She pees on the concrete in my patio. I kid you not, dude. It's fucking hilarious.
So moving on to my number 3, I picked "Mistress for Christmas" from AC/DC on the Razor's Edge album. It's funny that that's not the sleaziest song on my list. I think that goes to the Stalking song. But this is a great one. This is classic. I love this album, and I love the tone of it. I love the way that it was recorded. This was one of their what we would consider their comeback albums, and it's always one of those that I gotta listen to at Christmas time. I mean, who doesn't want a Mistress for Christmas?
You say comeback albums, like how many comebacks have they had in their career?
30 to 40 comebacks, but it is true, and we talked about that on our AC/DC.
No,
album.
It is true.
I mean, our AC/DC episode, not album. We did not put out a bootleg AC/DC album.
Because if we did, I'm not getting paid on it.
And it wouldn't sound that great. So, what do you got for number 3?
Oh, my number 3. we're getting some metal here. Finally getting to the metal. Rob Halford with Donner and Blitzen. Man, what a badass song this is. Say what?
That's a cool song.
It is. It's a very cool song. So I listened to this song and I'm like, okay, wait a second. This sounds familiar. Wait a second. Hold on. This song sounds just like Angel of Retribution. And I'm like, maybe it is, but there's some different parts to it that are not the same. But there's a lot of the structure and I guess the chord changes are very similar to those that are in Angel of Retribution. But this is Donner and Blitzen. This is a really cool song. The production is a little weak on it. I kind of think that they kind of wanted to. I'm going to stop saying kinda here. They wanted to kind of keep it tame.
He said it again.
I know I said it again. They wanted to keep it tame to keep the non-metalhead Christmas song listeners kind of interested, because it's not like totally in your face, but it's still, enough for a metalhead to like. It's a cool song.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I did not have it on my list, though, surprisingly. I do have
offended.
A different song for my number
I'm offended.
For my number 2. I have No Presents for Christmas from King Diamond. What it's funny about this, I would say it could fit on Fatal Portrait or some of those early albums. And it wouldn't faze me. It still would fit in really well. It's a fast-paced track, awesome solo. I mean, what good Christmas song doesn't have an awesome solo? King, of course, showing off his falsetto, and just what a sense of humor. What a great song.
King Diamond is, as evil as people think he is. He's just a normal guy. And, this song that he does, There's No Presents for Christmas, is so cool. I mean, I've always told people this is my favorite Christmas song. And I always sit there and say, yeah, No Presents for Christmas. And I'm like, what are you talking? They're like, are you crazy? I'm like, no, this is a cool song. But they just happen to say No Presents for Christmas. To me, it was an instant Christmas classic when I first heard it. I was like, oh yeah, this is going to stay in my Christmas playlist forever. Incorporating Christmas melodies to that killer riff that he's got. I love this song. So in fact, because you've mentioned it as your number 2, it actually is my number 1. As I just said, it's my favorite Christmas song. And what's cool about King's vocals on this is that he sounds a lot more like the Merciful Fate King Diamond than he does the King Diamond.
Yeah.
Sings a lot more in the lower registers. Even the falsetto is not as high as he typically gets. And it's kind of a lot of rough singing from him in this song. But I love this song. This is super cool. And then, yes, it's the sense of humor behind it all is outstanding.
All right. So what is your number 2 then?
My number 2 is Stryper with Winter Wonderland. And so it's funny because it's like, we talked about this the other day. We saw a picture of Michael Sweet with King Diamond, and I said it was the yin and yang of metal. You go from one extreme to the other. And this is the same thing, my number 1 and my number 2. Stryper doing Winter Wonderland. The funny thing about this is, okay, 2 things. 1, on Spotify, you can't get the original version. I don't know why it's not available. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with copyrights, and even though Winter Wonderland is an older song, it has something to do with the record labels, I'm sure. So you get a live version that was on like Monster Christmas Ballads or some shit like that, this is not your typical ballad. This is a much faster version, but the original was done in 1984, released on an EP called Reason for the Season, or a single if you want. It was just 2 songs. So it was basically Stryper doing Christmas music. One was their own original, then Winter Wonderland. And it's so cheesy in terms of how it starts, because you got Robert Sweet starts doing his double bass drumming, and it's super cool. It sounds great. I mean, the production's great on it. And then all of a sudden, Michael comes in singing. He's like, "All right, guys, we're gonna do some Christmas singing here, and so why don't you guys start up?" And they're like, "Nah, I don't feel like it." Whatever. Oz and Tim just like, "No, we're not gonna do this." And then, he goes, "Come on, Robert, you do something." He goes, "Nah, I'm not doing anything. I'm just playing drums." And so Michael turns around and says, "All right, well, shun you guys." And I'm like, "Really? Shun you guys? I mean, is that how, and it's not the term politically correct is not proper in this term. This is just, what did I say?
Religiously correct.
Religiously correct. It's a goody two shoes persona that they were trying to give off back then in 1984. He goes, "All right, shun you guys," and he starts singing a cappella accompanied with drums, and then he turns around and goes, "This isn't going to work, guys." And so the band comes in and they start doing harmony background vocals. It's a really cool version when you get into it. It's kind of heavy when you listen to it. So I think it's pretty fun. Have you heard it?
I have heard it. We actually talked about this a long time ago. Not on the show, but just between each other. But yeah, I've heard it before. When you told me about the shun you guys thing, I had to hear it. So so I guess that leaves me with my number one. And that is "Oh Holy Night" by Halford. Halford 3, the Winter Songs album. This is "Oh Holy Night" is undoubtedly my favorite Christmas song. It's the emotion behind it, everything. I love that song. Probably ever since I heard it in, I think the first time I heard it was probably in Home Alone. I just love the tune, everything. Like I said, I'm not a particularly religious person, but this song is awesome. And he just absolutely kills it. The electric guitars, faster pace, just make it even better for me. But Rob Halford's vocals are some of my favorite metal vocals ever, and him singing this particular song just makes it that much better.
I listened to this album, this version of the song the other day, and this song is good. I like this song. I'm not really big. I think the Rob Halford solo Celestial Christmas album is better than this one, than Halford 3. But that's just my opinion.
I like both of them. I don't know if I prefer one over the other. But
well, I think Celestial is more upbeat in my opinion, so that's why I kind of like it more. The Winter Songs is very just that. It's very winter. It's kind of like moody, and it's one of those. I don't want to say downer Christmas ones, but it's one of the more mellow ones. And he does some great
I get what
renditions.
you're saying. It's not really downer per se. It's more just like it's mellow.
Mellow.
Yeah.
I mean, because let's not mince words about Christmas music. For a lot of it is kind of mellow, and for some people, it puts them into a depression, and that's unfortunate. And if anyone out there is going through those kinds of things, please reach out to someone, because there's always going to be someone there that's willing to talk to you. That's why I kind of like Celestial a little bit better, because it's a little bit more upbeat. There's more songs that are kind of faster paced, and especially when I heard Donner and Blitzen, I'm like, oh yeah, this wins. So, and of course, as I mentioned, my number one is King Diamond's "There's No Presents for Christmas." I was at the beginning of the show going to mention that King Diamond has a second Christmas song, so that was going to be my honorable mention. I forgot to mention it. It is a song called "Christmas." And it is a metal song. It's a typical King Diamond song. There's nothing particularly great about it. And he does something very similar that he did in No Presents, where he had a beginning and an end that had Christmas themes to it. In this one, there's like a talking part that plays some really chintzy, cheesy Christmas music. It happens again about 2/3 of the way into the song, right where the guitar solo would be, but it's cool nonetheless. It's hard to say because it's not as Christmassy as "There's No Presents for Christmas." That's why I kind of like it better. But I put it in as an honorable mention just because I knew that we were going to be talking about King Diamond.
Well, if you're going to do a honorable mention, I'm gonna do an honorable mention then.
Fine.
This was the one that I had to drop from my list initially, which is the Misfits with Blue Christmas. So
I've never heard that one, but I can only imagine him doing an Elvis version.
well, it's Jerry only. It's that era of the band though. So, but no, he still does a really fun version of the song. Actually, the whole it's an EP from I want to say like the 2010s. It's got "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch" on it, which is fun too. But "Blue Christmas" I think is my favorite off of that one.
Oh, that's cool. See, I like Christmas music. I like really upbeat Christmas music, like because the slow stuff is just like, oh, come on. I want to get past this. It's just too moody. But like Big Bad Voodoo Daddy, I love their Christmas album. That's just so cool. Bare Naked Ladies has a great Christmas album. Very, very cool. And I know neither one of those are metal, but it's just they're fun albums. So if anybody out there wants to stretch their listening capabilities, and their boundaries, pick up those two albums. They're pretty cool.
Very cool. Well, I like your list, and what I like about it too is we've had only one song crossover, so you basically just got two Christmas albums.
There you go. I knew that song had to be on your list. It had to be,
yeah, for sure.
But I was expecting you to have something like I was expecting you to have TSO on there, but I'm surprised.
I felt like most of their stuff, is instrumental. I just kind of wanted like more kind of fun for the most part.
Well, and that's part of the reason why I like Christmas Eve, because it's really heavy.
Yeah.
That middle section, man, just gets going and it's just bam, it's pounding on you. So I really liked it. All right, well, everyone, that's our show for tonight. We wish everyone a happy holiday season, whether you celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, or Festivus, or even something else. Pour yourself a shot of Metallica's Blackened Whiskey, a shot of Blacktooth Grin, or have a pint of Trooper beer. Either way, cheers, and be safe out there.
And don't forget to tune in next week as we wrap up 2022 with a special year-end episode. On behalf of Kenneth and myself, stay safe, turn it up to 11, and happy holidays.
See ya.